What if loneliness isn't a problem to solve? What if it's a test you're failing? Feudal Japan, 1638. Hiroshi knelt in the ruins of his family's dojo. Everyone he loved was gone. His master, his brothers in arms, his entire clan wiped out in a single night of betrayal. He had two choices: run from the silence by seeking new attachments, or walk into it and discover what the greatest samurai already knew. That loneliness is just resistance to the one person you'll spend every moment of your life with: yourself. This is how he learned to turn isolation into power, and why you've been taught the exact opposite. Chapter 1. The Night Everything Ended. Osaka Province, Spring 1638. Hiroshi was 24 years old the night his world ended. He'd trained in the Hayashi clan dojo since he was 8. 16 years of discipline, brotherhood, purpose. His master, Takeda Sensei, was more than a teacher. He was a father. His fellow students weren't just training partners, they were brothers. The dojo wasn't just a building, it was home. Then came the betrayal. A rival clan, the Shimada, attacked at midnight, not in honorable combat, in assassination, fire, screams, steel cutting through sleeping men. Hiroshi survived only because he'd been meditating in the garden, away from the main hall. By the time he reached the dojo, it was too late. Takeda Sensei, dead. Kenji, his closest friend, dead. 12 others, dead. The building burning, the smell of smoke and blood mixing in the cold air. Hiroshi stood there, katana in hand, surrounded by bodies. Not a single enemy in sight. They'd struck and vanished like ghosts. He knelt in the ash, and for the first time since childhood, he wept. The next 3 months were a blur. Hiroshi wandered from village to village, searching for something he couldn't name. Purpose, maybe. Revenge, possibly. Meaning, definitely. He tried joining another dojo. It felt wrong. These weren't his brothers. He tried drinking. It numbed him for hours, then made everything worse. He tried seeking out the Shimada clan for revenge. But what would killing them change? The dead would still be dead. Every night, the same crushing weight, silence. Not the peaceful silence of meditation, the suffocating silence of being completely alone. He'd wake in empty rooms, surrounded by strangers, and feel more isolated than if he were in the wilderness. The loneliness wasn't just sadness. It was a physical ache in his chest, a hollowness that food, sake, or distraction couldn't fill. One evening, sitting in a cheap inn, Hiroshi realized something terrifying. He didn't know who he was without others. His identity had been built entirely on relationships: master's student, clan brother, Kenji's friend. Strip those away, and what remained? Nothing, just emptiness. Desperate, Hiroshi remembered something Takeda Sensei once mentioned. A hermit monk named Hakuin lived in a cave 3 days north of Kyoto. If you ever lose your way, the master had said, seek him, but only if you're ready to face yourself. Hiroshi had nothing left to lose. He walked for 3 days through mountain paths, carrying only his swords and a small bag of rice. The cave was exactly where the stories said it would be. A narrow opening in a cliff face, barely visible behind bamboo. Inside, a single figure sat in meditation. Ancient, thin, motionless. Hiroshi waited. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30. Finally, the old monk opened his eyes. Why are you here? Hiroshi's voice cracked. I've lost everything. my master, my brothers, my purpose. I don't know who I am anymore." Hakuin studied him with eyes that had seen 1,000 such men. "You've lost nothing," the monk said. "You're just meeting yourself for the first time, and you don't like what you see." The words hit like a blade. "I'm lonely," Hiroshi said. "Completely alone." "No," Hakuin replied. "You're not lonely. You're just scared." Hiroshi felt anger rise. "My entire family is dead. How am I not lonely?" Hakuin stood slowly, bones creaking. "Loneliness is not the absence of others. It's the absence of yourself. You've spent your entire life defining yourself through relationships. Master's student, friend, clan member. Now those mirrors are gone, and you don't know how to exist without someone reflecting you back to you." He walked to the cave entrance, gestured at the vast emptiness beyond. "This is Dokudu, the way of walking alone, not lonely, alone. There's a difference, and until you learn it, you'll spend your entire life running from the only person you can never escape." Hiroshi stared at the old monk. "How do I learn it?" Hakuin smiled slightly. "By stopping your search, by sitting with the discomfort, by walking into the emptiness instead of running from it. For how long? Until you understand." That night, Hiroshi didn't sleep. He sat at the cave entrance looking at the stars, feeling the crushing weight of solitude, and for the first time, he didn't run. Chapter 2. Ma, the Sacred Emptiness. The next morning, Hakuin led Hiroshi deeper into the mountains. They walked in silence for hours. No conversation, no explanation. Eventually, they reached a clearing, a small shrine, a stone basin, nothing else. "Sit," Hakuin said. Hiroshi sat. "For the next 7 days, you will do nothing. No training, no tasks, no reading, just sitting, just being." Hiroshi felt panic rise. "What's the purpose?" "To discover that you don't need one." The monk walked away, leaving Hiroshi alone in the clearing. Day 1 was torture, not physical torture, mental. Hiroshi's mind screamed for stimulation, for purpose, for something to do. He tried meditation. His thoughts raced, memories of his brothers, regrets, fantasies of revenge. He tried sword practice. It felt hollow without someone to train with. He tried walking, but where and why? By afternoon, the loneliness was unbearable, not because he missed specific people, because he missed the distraction they provided. When you're with others, you don't have to face yourself. Their presence fills the space. Alone, that space becomes deafening. Day 2, Hiroshi broke the rule. He left the clearing, found Hakuin's cave. "I can't do this. The silence is crushing me." Hakuin looked up from his tea. "Good. That means it's working." "What's working? I'm suffering." "Exactly. You're finally feeling what you've been running from. Loneliness isn't the problem, Hiroshi. Your resistance to it is." The monk gestured for him to sit. "Let me teach you something the samurai understood, but the modern world has forgotten." He drew 2 characters in the dirt. "Ma," Hakuin said. "Do you know this word? Space, gap, interval. Deeper." Hiroshi thought. "Emptiness?" "Yes, but not emptiness as lack, emptiness as potential. The space between notes is what makes music. The space between words is what gives them meaning. The space between breaths is what makes breath possible." Hakuin looked at Hiroshi with unusual intensity. You think loneliness is a void that needs filling. But what if that void is sacred? What if the emptiness you're running from is exactly where your power lives? Hakuin continued, his voice taking on the quality of someone speaking across time itself. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman who ever lived, walked alone for most of his life. Not because he couldn't find companionship, because he understood something you're just beginning to learn. What's that? The warrior who needs others to feel whole is no warrior at all. He's a beggar. His strength depends on circumstances he can't control. But the warrior who can stand alone, truly alone, becomes unbreakable. Not because he's cold or heartless, because his center is within himself, not within others. Hiroshi felt something shift. But isn't that lonely? Only if you believe you're separate from yourself. Loneliness is you rejecting you. Solitude is you accepting you. One is suffering, the other is freedom. Hakuin stood, paced slowly. Your clan is gone, your master is gone, and you've spent 3 months seeking new attachments to fill that void. New dojos, new friends, new purpose, all external, all temporary, all destined to leave you eventually. The words were harsh, but true. What if instead of filling the void, you learned to live in it? What if instead of running from solitude, you walked into it fully, not to suffer, to discover that beneath the loneliness, you're already whole? Hiroshi absorbed this. How? The same way you learned the sword, through practice, through discipline, through choosing presence over escape. Hakuin reached into his robe, pulled out a small, worn scroll. A warrior emperor, far from Japan, once wrote something that would have made Musashi nod in agreement. He read, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Marcus Aurelius, Hakuin said, a stoic, a warrior who ruled an empire while sitting alone in military camps, writing to himself in a journal. He understood what you're learning now, that external solitude reveals internal company. When you stop seeking validation, approval, or completion from others, you discover that you were never incomplete to begin with. Hiroshi listened, something ancient stirring in him. The Stoics called this self-sufficiency. The Zen masters call it original nature. Musashi called it Dokudu, walking alone. Different words, same truth. Hakuin's eyes seemed to pierce through Hiroshi, seeing not just him, but beyond him, across centuries. And in times you cannot imagine, in places far from this mountain, others will face what you face now. The crushing weight of isolation, the terror of being alone with themselves, the addiction to distraction that modern life will perfect. His voice lowered. They'll be told that loneliness is a disease, that connection is the cure, that being alone is weakness, everything opposite of what warriors know. But for those who feel called to this path, who recognize themselves in your story, he paused, letting silence speak. They can walk it too, not as ancient history, as living practice. At presence and purpose, we keep this discipline alive. Every week, the warrior principles. Every week, the path from loneliness to solitude. Every week, the training that turns isolation into unshakable presence. Hakuin looked at Hiroshi directly. If you're watching this, if these words resonate in your chest like recognition, not discovery, join us. Subscribe. Walk this path with warriors across time who chose self-sufficiency over dependence, presence over distraction, inner strength over external validation. The moment passed. Hakuin returned to his normal teaching tone. Now, back to your clearing. 7 days, no escape. Let's see if you're ready to meet yourself. Hiroshi bowed deeply. Something had changed. Not understanding yet, but willingness. Chapter 3. 7 Days of Silence. Day 3. The Resistance. Hiroshi returned to the clearing. This time, he didn't try to escape the discomfort. He sat with it. The loneliness rose like a wave, and instead of running, he watched it, observed it, named it. This is loneliness. This is the feeling of being separate. And something strange happened. When he stopped resisting it, it lost some of its power. Not all, but some. Day 4. The Memories. The memories came harder now. Kenji's laugh, Takeda-sensei's stern but kind eyes, the sound of bokken clacking in morning practice. Old Hiroshi would have drowned in grief, seeking distraction. New Hiroshi let the memories come, felt them fully, then let them go. He realized something profound. He wasn't honoring his brothers by running from their absence. He was honoring them by being present with the grief. Day 5. The Boredom. By day 5, grief gave way to something worse, boredom. The novelty of being present wore off. Now it was just sitting, doing nothing, waiting for nothing. His mind screamed, "This is pointless. You're wasting time. You should be training, planning, doing something." But Hakuin's words echoed, "You don't need a purpose." What if just existing was enough? What if he didn't need to be productive, useful, purposeful every moment? What if being was enough? Day 6. The Breakthrough. Day 6, something cracked. Hiroshi woke before dawn, walked to the edge of the clearing, watched the sun rise, and in that moment, for maybe 30 seconds, his mind went completely quiet. No thoughts of the past, no anxiety about the future, no loneliness, no grief, no boredom, just presence, the sound of wind in bamboo, the feeling of cold air on his face, the colors of dawn painting the sky. He was alone, but he wasn't lonely. For the first time in 3 months, he felt whole, not happy, not sad, just complete. The moment passed, the thoughts returned, but now he knew solitude wasn't the enemy. Resistance to solitude was. Day 7. The Understanding. On the 7th day, Hakuin appeared. "Tell me what you learned," Hiroshi thought carefully. "I learned that I've been running my entire life, not from others, from myself. I used relationships, purpose, and identity to avoid ever being alone with who I actually am. And when I stopped running, when I sat with the discomfort, I discovered that beneath the loneliness, I'm already complete. I don't need others to make me whole. I was whole all along." Hakuin smiled. "Good. You've taken your first step, but understanding intellectually is different from living it daily. Now comes the real work." Chapter 4. The Science of Solitude. That evening, Hakuin explained something that wouldn't be understood for centuries, but which warriors had always known. Your brain is designed for connection, for tribe, for belonging. This is survival. In ancient times, isolation meant death. So loneliness is a signal, like hunger or thirst. It says, "Find your people." But, Hakuin continued, modern humans have confused the signal with the problem. They've become addicted to connection. They can't sit alone for 5 minutes without reaching for distraction. What Hakuin couldn't know, but what modern neuroscience would later prove, constant connection activates the brain's reward system. Dopamine hits from social validation, the ping of a message, the comfort of not being alone. But this creates dependency. When connection isn't available, the brain panics. Loneliness feels like withdrawal. The Stoics understood this, Hakuin said. They trained themselves to be self-sufficient, not because they hated people, because they refused to need them. He quoted Epictetus, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Other people lie beyond your control, Hiroshi. They will leave, betray, die. If your peace depends on their presence, you'll never be free. This wasn't cold, it was practical. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journals, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Miyamoto Musashi lived this completely, Hakuin said. After winning his final duel, he retired to a cave, alone, for years, wrote the Book of 5 Rings, painted, meditated, died peacefully. Not lonely, alone. He wrote, "Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor." What does that mean? It means the only thing you truly own is yourself, your character, your presence, your center. Build that strong enough, and you become unshakable, regardless of who stays or leaves. Hakuin explained what modern psychology would later call locus of control. External locus. I'm happy when others validate me. Internal locus. I'm whole regardless of external circumstances. The first creates fragility. The second creates resilience. Loneliness comes from external locus, Hakuin said. You've placed your peace outside yourself, in others' hands. When they leave, your peace leaves with them. Solitude comes from internal locus. Your peace lives inside you. Others can enhance it, but they can't create or destroy it. This is warrior psychology, not cold, strategic. Chapter 5. The Test of Solitude. Month 2. Hakuin gave Hiroshi a new task. For 3 months, you'll live in a small hut 2 hours from here, alone, no visitors. I'll bring you rice once a week. The rest is silence. Hiroshi felt old fear rise, but this time he recognized it. Fear of being alone. Yes, face it. The hut was tiny, 4 walls, a mat, a small fire pit, nothing else. The first week, Hiroshi's mind rebelled. This is pointless. You're wasting your youth. You should be rebuilding the clan, finding purpose. But he remembered Hakuin's teaching. You don't need a purpose. Just be, the daily rhythm. Hiroshi created a simple routine. Wake at dawn. Meditation, 1 hour. Sword practice, not for combat, for presence. Prepare simple meal. Walk in nature, more meditation sleep. No variation, no stimulation, just rhythm. And slowly, something remarkable happened. The loneliness faded, not because he learned to tolerate it, because he stopped resisting it. One morning, 2 months in, Hiroshi woke and realized. He felt content, not ecstatic, not entertained, just quietly, deeply content. He didn't miss conversation, didn't crave company, didn't feel incomplete. He was alone, and it was enough. More than enough. It was peace. Month 3, a young samurai stumbled into the clearing, lost, desperate. "Please, can you help me? I'm looking for the hermit Hakuin." Old Hiroshi would have eagerly engaged. Finally, human contact. New Hiroshi felt something different, mild annoyance, not because he disliked people, because the conversation felt like noise, like someone interrupting a meditation he'd been in for 3 months. He gave the samurai directions, offered him water, sent him on his way, and returned to his silence. Grateful. That's when he understood. He'd crossed a threshold. Solitude wasn't something he endured. It was something he preferred, not always, not forever. But right now, it was exactly what he needed. And that was enough. Chapter 6. The Way of Walking Alone. After 3 months, Hiroshi returned to the cave. Hakuin looked at him, nodded slowly. "You've changed." "How can you tell?" "Your eyes. Before, they were searching, seeking, needing. Now they're still. You've found something that doesn't depend on outside circumstances." They sat. "Tell me," Hakuin said. "What is Dokudu?" Hiroshi thought carefully. "Walking alone, but not lonely. Complete in yourself, needing nothing external to feel whole." "Good. And why is this a warrior's path?" "Because a warrior who needs others is weak, controllable, breakable. But a warrior who's complete alone becomes unshakable." Hakuin smiled. "Yes. Now I'll teach you the deepest layer. Here's what confuses people," Hakuin said. "They think solitude means isolation, rejecting others, becoming cold. No. True solitude is a foundation, not a prison. When you're whole alone, you can connect with others from strength, not need, from choice, not desperation." He explained. "The person who can't be alone clings to others, suffocates them, needs constant validation, becomes controlling. But the person who's comfortable alone, they connect freely, love without possession, stay without need, leave without resentment." Paradoxically, mastering solitude makes you better at connection, because you're no longer using people to fill a void. You're sharing your wholeness, not seeking completion. Musashi spent his final years alone in Regando Cave, Hakuin said. But he wasn't lonely. He was complete. He wrote, he painted, he meditated, he died peacefully. Some say he wasted his talent, could have trained more students, built a legacy. But Musashi understood what most never do. The greatest victory isn't defeating others. It's being at peace with yourself. He wrote, "Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. Not think nothing of yourself. Think lightly. Don't take your ego so seriously. Then you can see clearly." Hakuin's voice shifted, that quality of speaking across time returning. "In the future, in times you'll never see, loneliness will become an epidemic. Not because people are more alone, because they've forgotten how to be alone. They'll have more connection than ever, devices that let them talk to anyone, anywhere, instantly. But they'll feel more isolated, because connection without solitude is just noise, distraction masquerading as intimacy. They'll call it a mental health crisis. They'll create therapies, medications, solutions, all focused on ending loneliness by creating more connection. But that's treating the symptom, not the disease. The disease is inability to be whole alone, addiction to external validation, dependence on others for identity. And the cure isn't more connection. It's what you've learned, Dokudu, the way of walking alone. Hakuin looked directly at Hiroshi, but his words felt meant for others listening across centuries. For those who feel this calling, who recognize that loneliness is just resistance to solitude, walk with us. At Presence and Purpose, we teach what Musashi lived, what the Stoics practiced, what every warrior across time has had to learn. Every week, the ancient practices. Every week, the path from dependence to self-sufficiency. Not as philosophy, as discipline. Subscribe, not to consume content, to practice, because this teaching only works when lived. The moment settled. Hiroshi felt he'd witnessed something larger than himself. "So what now?" Hiroshi asked. "Now you return to the world, but you return different, complete. When you meet others, you're not seeking, you're sharing. When you're alone, you're not lonely, you're home. This is freedom." Chapter 7. The Test of Return. 6 months after the massacre, Hiroshi returned to Osaka. Same city, different man. He walked through crowded streets, past groups of samurai, families, merchants. Old Hiroshi would have felt crushing loneliness. Everyone belongs somewhere except me. New Hiroshi felt nothing, not cold nothing, peaceful nothing. He was alone in the crowd, and it didn't bother him. A dojo master approached him one day. "I've heard of your skill, your clan's reputation. We'd be honored if you joined our school, became part of our brotherhood." Old Hiroshi would have leapt at the chance, anything to belong again. New Hiroshi considered it carefully. "Thank you, but I walk alone now." "You'd refuse brotherhood." "I'm not refusing connection. I'm refusing need. If I join you because I need to belong, I'm weak. If I join you from choice, from strength, that's different." The master looked confused. "What's the difference?" "One makes me dependent, the other keeps me free." Hiroshi bowed. "Perhaps someday I'll train with you, but not from desperation, from choice." He walked away, alone, complete. Months later, Hiroshi encountered another survivor from his clan, Satoru, a student he'd trained with years ago. "Hiroshi, I thought you were dead." They embraced. "Where have you been?" Satoru asked. "Learning to be alone." Satoru looked confused. "Why would you want that?" "Because I was never taught how. My entire identity was built on others. When the clan died, I nearly died too. Not physically, but the me I thought I was vanished." "And you found yourself?" "I found that I was always there, just buried under layers of need, attachment, and dependence." They sat in a tea house, talked for hours, and Hiroshi noticed something remarkable. He enjoyed the conversation, but he didn't need it. When Satoru left, Hiroshi felt warm gratitude, not desperate loneliness. This was healthy connection, from wholeness, not lack. Years later, Hiroshi sat in a small dojo he'd built in the mountains. A young student approached. "Master, I feel so alone. Everyone I loved is gone. How do I stop the loneliness?" Hiroshi smiled, remembering himself years ago. "You don't stop it. You walk through it, into it, until you discover that loneliness is just resistance to the person you'll spend every moment of your life with." Who? Yourself. He stood, walked to the dojo entrance. Out there, he gestured to the world. People are running, from job to relationship to distraction to purpose. Always moving, always seeking, never arriving. Because they're running from the same thing you're running from, the silence, the emptiness, the solitude. But here's what Musashi knew, what the Stoics practiced, what Hakuin taught me. That emptiness isn't empty. It's full of you, your true nature. Your original face before you were taught to perform, to please, to belong. When you stop running from it, when you walk into it, you discover something they'll never tell you in therapy, in books, in connection workshops. You discover that you were never alone. You were always there, whole, complete, waiting for you to stop seeking outside what was always inside. The student listened, absorbing. Master, is solitude better than connection? No, it's the foundation for connection. When you're whole alone, you can be present with others, not using them, not clinging, just with them. But if they leave, you return to yourself, and you're still whole because your peace doesn't depend on them. It depends on you. This is warrior psychology, not cold, strategic. The samurai who needs his clan is weak. The samurai who's complete without them but chooses to stay, unbreakable. Hiroshi walked to the center of the dojo, where a scroll hung, Dokudu, the way of walking alone. This teaching is older than Japan, he said. The Stoics knew it, Musashi lived it, Hakuin preserved it, and I'm passing it to you. Not because solitude is superior to connection, because you must learn to stand alone before you can truly stand with others. He looked at the young student, but his words felt larger, directed beyond this moment. This path continues, not in books, in practice. Every person who faces loneliness has the same choice I had. Run from it into distraction, or walk into it and discover wholeness. At presence and purpose, we walk this path. Ancient warrior wisdom meets modern life. Every week, the practices. Every week, the principles. Not as theory, as discipline. If you feel called to this, if loneliness has been your teacher, join us, subscribe. Walk with warriors across time who learned that solitude isn't loneliness, it's freedom. He bowed to the student. Now, sit in the corner, alone, for 1 hour. No distraction, no purpose, just presence. And let's see if you're ready to meet yourself. The student bowed, walked to the corner, sat. Hiroshi smiled. The teaching continues, not because loneliness ends, because warriors learn to walk through it, into the emptiness, and discover it was never empty at all, just, still, whole, home.